Christopher here. We're going to be talking about creativity and the role of technology and humans and the combination of the two in terms of creating valuable creative resources. Carolyn, can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming to this chat. Carolyn DeRosier, founder and CEO of Scribely, and we focus on writing alt text for images primarily, but we also have services related to video and audio. But basically what Scribely is a team of human writers that specializes in composing exceptional descriptions. And in this age of AI, we absolutely need to make sure humans are still in the loop. So that is our focus. And yeah, happy to dig into this topic.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Christopher?
Hello, my name is Christopher PATNOE. I'm the head of accessibility and disability inclusion for Google for EMEA. My responsibility is to try to understand the needs of the community from Africa to the Middle East to Europe and bring it inside so we can create an understanding of how to make our platforms and products and services more inclusive.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you both for being here. So, Carolyn, let's start with you because you immediately brought up that crossover between the humans and the machines, where a machine can write alt text, but a human can write better alt text. It's sort of broadly where we're starting. So what do you see as the combination and the balance between what the machine's capable and what the human's capable and the creativity that comes from the human?
Right. Well, alt text is seemingly simple, right? Just write a description for an image, but even though it's quite simple in terms of the requirement, it's not happening on the web. So we have a lot of missing alt text out there. We have a lot of inaccurate alt text. There's a lot of formula-based descriptions that are primarily geared towards SEO. So a lot of errors, frankly, all over the place. And it ends up creating very challenging barriers to overcome because images do play this important role on the web. So we have this question with this powerful technology that we now have at our disposal. Could this be the answer? And I think it takes careful consideration and the design of good systems around this that keep humans in the loop, because what we're seeing right now is it's leaving a lot to be desired. It's good in some cases, but not in others. There's a lot of anecdotal information flying around about what it can do, but frankly, I'm quite concerned about the level of quality. And I think that we can use it as a tool potentially to speed up the work of writing good alt text, but we still absolutely need humans as part of that process. What we're talking about is accessibility. Images and their descriptions need to be 100% true and accurate because they are an accessibility requirement. So we can't be establishing barriers where we have misinformation out there. You can't trust the descriptions that you're hearing. So for accessibility purposes, we absolutely need to get this right.
And I guess the human element of that is the creative bit of it. So the person writing that tiny piece of text, which is really difficult to condense into that description, is thinking hard about who's getting the information and what they want to know. That's the human element of it, I guess.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's difficult to replicate that because as part of our writing process, we're analyzing not only just the image and the content of the image, but also the context, everything surrounding that image. And it's not just the text that appears around the image. We're also thinking about the audience. We're thinking about the brand. We're thinking about the tone, the style. What information, what approach do we need to take here? There are any number of details that we could choose to describe, any number of words we could choose to select. What are the best words and descriptive elements that we can include to properly convey that information in that particular case? So there's a lot of subjectivity that comes along with that, and I think that's one of the challenges. People feel continuously quite intimidated by writing alt text, and it's because you do have to make these critical decisions that feel subjective.
I'm sorry, so just a question about what the human skill or talents are in your writers. I'm thinking about what's the essence of the human. So they're able to write good words, they're practiced at writing good words, because AI can obviously dish up words. What's the human difference? What's a good writer for you of alt text?
Yeah, I think that a good writer of alt text is an empathetic writer, someone who can take another person's perspective and look at this image on this page and think, how would I describe this to a friend in the most efficient way possible that's going to get them to immediately understand exactly what is here? not spending any time on irrelevant details, just getting right to the point. So I think it starts with empathy and also an understanding of accessibility as well. So the fact that these descriptions likely will be used by assistive technologies, so they need to translate into that format, and it needs to be a good experience.
Cool, thank you. And Christopher, where are you coming from on this one around the balance between the human and the technology?
Well, I see the technology as the next. It's the next chisel. It's the next piece of charcoal. The assistive the artificial intelligence is the tool that makes something easier to do. Say, for example, if you wanted to compose music for a game, if you have one composer and yet you have 30 hours of music you need to do, let them do the interesting stuff. You don't need to have a human create world music that no one's paying attention to, unless you want to pay someone to do that. But you really want them to come up with an excellent theme that works well with the drama. So when you have a battle, when you have a fight, you want to have the song be great. That's when you need the human. So when you do it well, the AI becomes a part of the toolkit that someone has. It doesn't become the art. It becomes the artist's tool.
Yeah.
But there's something that you said about translate. What's really interesting to me about this international world that we are, I'm looking at the United Nations words here. There's also an international context to AI and to descriptions. Something that makes sense in English may not make sense in Hindi. Yesterday, I cracked a joke about Annie, get your gun, and no one laughed. Like, oh yeah, I forgot. This isn't. I'm not in Kansas anymore, literally. But it's going to be true when it comes to these automatic descriptions. If you have a solution that is generic, it's only going to be generic. You can't do the empathetic translation. You need to have the human aspect to make it real as opposed to efficient.
And I was thinking about the music. So leave the AI to the lift music, and get the humans in on the real art. Similarly with the alt text, is make it more engaging and more interesting. That's the creative element, the human touch that we're trying to get to. That's what it looks like when it's happening. And whereabouts in other art forms are you thinking in terms of the impact it can have? You mentioned music. We've talked about writing. There's video. There's dance. Opera. I know you know a lot about opera. Where are we going to see those interfaces starting to come through? And what concerns should we have about that, I guess?
The moment you hear that this is an AI-written opera, don't buy the ticket. It's not worth it. There is so much that needs to go into the complicated art forms. Again, if people treat the AI as a part of the development process as opposed to their end result itself, what it might do, it might help people understand the libretto. It could be useful for the translation of a libretto into different languages because it's poetic interpretation anyway. So if it doesn't have to be as empathetic and thoughtful. So there are uses of AI that's profound and meaningful when it comes to art and creation. But when we were talking before, I would never want to have an AI description of when I'm going through a gallery and have a description of art in the gallery. I would never want to see that because you have no context of the things that are around you. If you attach a piece of alt text to the metadata, thanks to you, if you lose the context, if it's someplace else, or it has no context at all. So when you want to go into an experience like a gallery, you want to have why these paintings are there together. Why are these two paintings next to each other? That matters. And AI providing a description of an image won't give you that.
And so we're particularly talking about creativity and looking ahead. Do you think that creators, whatever form of creativity we're talking about, how would they be changing in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of their learning and knowledge? They're shifting away from, in the sense of doing the drudge, into the more creative stuff. Is that a good move? Is it a positive thing? Are there things we should be concerned about? Your writers, how scared should they be about the emerging AI taking away their jobs? That's, I guess, the rub of the question as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that the prospects here are that we are giving people the tools that they need to potentially involve description work much earlier in the process as part of the creative process, where there was this kind of intimidating aspect of composing a description. If you're not naturally finding yourself to be a writer, can't find the words because you're working in a creative or a visual medium, and that's where you excel. I think that these tools can help people kind of push that forward and get there and remove the level of intimidation. we need to make sure that we're still accountable to the content that we're publishing on the web. That needs to be accessible, and we need to be owning our descriptions and our accessibility requirements that we're delivering for the content that we're creating. So however an organization does that, by hiring experts or by incorporating it into their process, we're all trying to get to the same place with the content we're publishing on the web.
I think Hector Minto yesterday at our panel on AI really described this in a nice way. It's just an evolution of technology. I mean, calculators used to be humans. Now they're things that you have in your pocket, or better yet, in your phone. So the technology is going to evolve constantly. And there's always some amount of displacement until people get retrained into how to use the technology for the new applications. What we really want to make sure, though, is that the community, that we are trained on how to use these tools to help our art, to help our businesses. Yeah. And then we need to make sure that what comes out of it is also based on representative data, thoughtfully gathered and contextual.
I wonder whether that is a straight line into AI, though. So the idea of being a creative accountant, it's not a nice phrase. so if you put in, so you've got this logical progression of technology, but AI is taking us into another place where it can do things that we can't conceive even now. It's making videos on text prompts. So we're on the cusp of this change. So I think it's comforting to see it as a linear change, but actually I suspect it's going to be much more than that, and it's going to be doing things that we can't anticipate. Is that how you see it? We were talking about the genie's out of the bottle for AI. So I've got another bottle over here with another genie in it who can put that genie back in. Shall I put the AI genie back in? Is that good for creativity, to hide the AI again and let the humans back in on the story? What's the balance going to be?
I think the answer is yes and no. Because if it's used only to save money for lack of quality, then it's not worth it. If it helps someone to be inspired to make a connection that they hadn't had before, because it brought something to the artistic process, then it's worthwhile. Right. So it really depends on what your goals are. If you're going to be that creative accountant that only cares about ones and zeros, like dollar signs, then it's probably going to be crap for art. Yeah. But if it becomes a thoughtful part of your creative process, I would never want to actually watch a video created by text. I think that the only use for that is like ads.
Do you know you haven't? How do you know you haven't?
Because today they're not
they're
there
really
yet.
obvious.
Yeah,
because they don't look like a human's made them. I guess that's the point.
But they would never be designed to meet your need as a human. They're designed to meet the needs of a marketer.
Right.
So they're being written by those ones and zeros people, as opposed to someone who's trying to create art.
Right.
Art has to have context and a story, and you can't get a thoughtful story in a prompt.
Which brings us back to good quality alt text being a creative process and not a simple typing out what I can see. It's actually explaining and storytelling. And that's still an element that the AI, you feel, is not up to the quality threshold. I guess that's the other point, is you can do it, but it's not very good.
Right. I think that we have done some testing with generative AI as part of our writing process and are noticing some interesting outcomes where our writers they're not focusing so much on the minutia, right? Or writing down the text exactly as it appears and transcribing it, because it's pretty good at actually capturing the text that's part of images. But they are focusing on the more human aspects. Those are immediately jumping out. You got that emotion wrong, or no, that's not what they're doing, or I know who that person is, I know where they are. There's always something to add, and so I think it's interesting to explore this process of how can we go further and also help speed up that process of writing really great alt text. I think that in some ways it is speeding our process up. So that makes me feel hopeful. In other cases, I think I am a yes and a no as well, because I think there are potentially outcomes that are quite concerning, where we might go too far, where people might be, just generating AI alt text for thousands of images and calling their work done. We need to stay in this position. Everyone at this conference is an accessibility advocate. We need to continue to advocate for accessibility and keeping that as part of the process from the very beginning. Otherwise, we may see those bad outcomes.
But I think this is true about accessibility in general. Those people who do the lowest common denominator, just tick box effort, it shows. And that those of us who need the tools, it's our responsibility to support those brands and companies that are doing a good job. So if you have crap alt text, it means they probably don't care about you, so don't shop there. If you have a thoughtful alt text or a funny alt text, this becomes part of the relationship with a brand. And that matters. So this becomes, I see it as an equalizer, but then those people who care, who want to do a good job, will really stand out by having thoughtful, creative uses of accessible products.
Right. So we don't see it killing creativity, number one. And we also think it can be an accessory for people who are being creative. And then finally, in terms of the different media that we've been talking about, we can see it being used across everything. We haven't found something that creative that we don't think AI can help us be even more creative. That's broadly the message, isn't it, I think?
Sure.
Yeah, so that's the yes and a no.
Exactly.
Marvelous. So thank you very much for joining us, and thank you, Carolyn and Christopher, for that wonderful chat. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you'll be looking on the internet for more information about Scribely and Google. Is that got a URL? Is it Google they call it?
Yeah, we're pretty new.
Okay.
You'll get it.
Yeah, okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.